Gaudachandrai Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah. And in complement to that, my dear Maheshwar from UK, please share a few words of blessing for all of us, spontaneous, whatever comes to your heart, so we can go even deeper for a moment. Yes.
Just throw me in the deep end. I pray to Sri Guru Gauranga, sort of shower their mercy on us all today in this beautiful Sangha, this Satsang, so that we can have realization on the words that are being spoken and to take them into our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, Dandavat to all of you, and so glad to see you, to feel your presence in this particular way, in this particular moment, and to feel each other's presence, hopefully, and reinforce the reality of interconnectedness, reinforce our awareness that everything belongs and we all exist as one united family. And by we, I refer to everything, basically, no exclusion. But we need we need to craft some sacred space and sacred moments so we can be reminded that every space is sacred and every moment is holy as well. So I'm glad to be able to enter this sacred circle with you today now. And I'm in Govardhan, as you may know. So from the last 2-3 days, so last half week I've been in Radha-Kunda with a dear friend, brother of mine, Sri Radha-Madhav Prabhu and his family there. It has become some type of tradition for the last years, coming to Vrindavan and spending a few days with him at Radha-Kunda, which is a dear place to me, very dear, and Govardhan is another one. So I'll be spending 1 week here before going to Vrindavan for a few last 3-4 days and going to Delhi, going to New Zealand, and so on and so forth. So let's begin. Let's begin with whatever elements are there in the cooking melting pot of your hearts that will like to be offered today to the fire of inquiry. Pariprashna, as Krishna says in the Gita, pariprashna, exhaustive inquiry, not passionate curiosity, wandering around all the circumambulating reality so we can properly understand it and honor it. So there are a few raised hands. Yes, there are a few. So let's go to the first one, coming from Karuneshwari and Avindraji. So please invite you to unmute yourself and bring your offering to the table. The feast has begun.
Hare Krishna Maharaj and all the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. So it's actually myself this time with the question.
Please.
I'm seeking your wise words, your wisdom on this one. So recently we were having our Brothers in Mystery Sacred Sangha, myself, Amanda, Vikram, Jivana, and Sambanath. And it was a few weeks ago now, so I can't remember where we were, but at the conclusion of it, I again in my own mind came to an answer, and the answer being that, yeah, it's all about karma. You know, it's all very karmic. Where we end up, where we've, you know, the path in the middle and where it starts, all seems to be very karmic. But then this word karma, you know, it's used a lot within Hinduism and now the westernized version of what karma is. And I'm just, obviously we have You know, we have from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we have understanding of manifested karma, unmanifested karma. But I'm wondering, like, you know, how far does it go? Is it that we can understand that the soul, the actual like divine spark, like the soul element, that must be outside of karma. So karma must be existing just when it's manifested in this material manifestation. So, but is karma, it's all like the grace of Krishna. Is karma a word that describes the complete mercy of the Lord as it which is guiding us through different lifetimes in the material realm? And, you know, how deep does it go? So I'm just seeking your wisdom on this. I'd like to look forward to hearing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to speak, hopefully, in some depth about something that is considered a basic topic, right? And we may rush into giving answers or concluding we already know what's karma, so let's go to something more esoteric. But we may not take the time to speak or go deeper enough into something introductory, as we say sometimes, and we may end up talking in a very introductory way about things that are very deep. So we want everything to remain deep. So let's begin from the most introductory things. And I'm not saying karma is the most introductory thing, but by comparison to other things, could be described as such, though when you go into the depths of even the most introductory thing, there is endless potential to go deeper into that. So the word introductory starts to disappear from your vocabulary, right? Because everything has endless depth if it's understood in connection to its source, to Krishna, to the center. So if everything has endless depth by virtue of their connection with God, how much you can call it introductory, right? So at least personally, I feel very much attracted to that type of approach. So you have been discussing a little bit on this with your brothers in mystery, and just a brief clarification, because some of you may think, what's that, a secret society or what? No, some type of clandestine underground mafia you are conducting with some Vaishnavas, like brothers in mystery, what you are doing there in secrecy. But it's just a name, just quote unquote, just a name that was put to a brotherhood, a group of brothers that have been sharing, among other groups of brotherhood, sisterhood. We have some of those for you, for those of you who do not know, like our male, female gatherings of Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, and this one has been baptized brothers in mystery, because ultimately we are revolving around Krishna, and Krishna is the ever-evolving mystery, if we want to call it that way. And we are brothers and sisters in mystery, in our connection to something that is eternally unpacking, unfolding. Only that, I won't go more than that, because the whole lecture we can get lost and found in that beautiful idea of brothers in mystery. So since we talk about mystery, we are talking about karma. And as with any other theme or aspect of reality, it's good to it's good to attach a healthy dose of mystery to it. In other words, not to attach a toxic dose of certainty, in the sense of, oh, karma, yeah, I know everything about that. I'm absolutely certain what it means. Next topic. No, let always leave a door open for mystery. Maybe you have opened many doors in connection to karma or other topics. You have explored many rooms, but there's always another door to open and another door to open, and continue the journey of discovery. So, as you mentioned, Ravindraji, in one sense, and we talked about that the other day, though I don't recall if it was in the Q&A in English or in Spanish, or in my bilingual mind, both melt. So, but we were talking how, and this is mentioned in the Bhagavatam and in the scriptures, how strictly speaking, we as Atma, soul, consciousness, are not touched ontologically in our constitution by ignorance. No? In other words, spirit and avidya do not mix. No? If we will be, how to say, faulty or like conditioned by default in our very makeup as souls, that will speak that we can never get rid of that, because that will be part of our constitution. You follow my point? If one of the atmas of the soul's ingredients is illusion or karma or avidya, use the term you want, if that's one of our constitutional elements as a soul, then you can never get rid of that, because that's part of your constitution, right? And that doesn't give too much hope, and that's not our teaching nor any Vedantic teaching. So the element of karma is something that operates in a more, in one sense, superficial level, if we want to put it that way, under the influence of avidya, which is translated as ignorance or unawareness of reality, of who is Krishna, who we are in connection to everything. We operate as if in a dream, basically. The example that is given sometimes is, of course, like, I don't know, you are watching TV and you choose to watch, God forbid, horror movie, and you become terrified after a few minutes, and you become afraid, and you start to sweat and maybe cry, and are afraid that at any moment a monster will come below the sofa and you may be killed. But actually you are safe at your house, but you have become so engrossed with that particular narrative that you really feel you are there. But actually that's not happening. So something like that is going on. We are over-identify what we are not, and we start to feel like that, though we are untouched by that movie, so to say, by that particular narrative. So from one point in that connection, in connection to karma and the soul, so to say, but going to maybe the main part of your question, how to understand karma. Should we understand karma as Krishna's mercy? Sometimes we hear about karma more in connection to justice, and grace or mercy as something different from justice, like the justice is you obtain what you deserve, and mercy is you don't obtain what you deserve, but you obtain what you need. No? So like the saying says, right? Like, help me when I deserve it the less, because that's when I will need it the most, right? That's how compassion operates. But ultimately, we will say in our tradition that even karma is a form of grace, is a form of Krishna being present in our life, trying to, how to say, extend his presence to us as much as he can, while we choose not to address him, to acknowledge him, because that's basically what karma means. In this context, again, the word karma can mean so many things, right? Krishna in the Gita 4.9, he says, Janma karma chame divya. So he's then referring to his own activities, which we call lila, but there he calls them karma. So karma means also action, means the reaction of the action, so many things. But here, I think we are clear about how we are addressing the term. So, as I like to say always, karma has more to do with a law of responsibility, an educational law that trains us in responsibility, and become, as I like to make the play of words, response-able. Responsible, response-able. In other words, train in learning how to respond to what comes to us as a result of our previous choices, and then we can be better informed for our future choices, make better choices, more informed, more enlightened, till we make the best possible choices. And as we always say, love is the ultimate responsibility. So somehow karma is an educational law, not a insensitive punishment, not like a cold, indifferent chastisement from some, like, again, distant agency, and you're just alone suffering the fruits of your sins, no? Because we can color all the things in that way. But it's more a law, a sensitive law, that tries to educate us about our best interest. And that can only happen if we grow, if we learn our lessons, and if we learn to voluntarily take more informed decisions in the best possible direction. And Krishna is behind all that, of course. All these cosmic laws. It's not that Krishna is absolute, does not know what's going on there. It has nothing to do with that. So, of course, when we voluntarily choose to turn our face to Bhagavan, to go back to Godhead, in that sense, because as we know, the term back to Godhead has more to do with we have given our back to the Godhead, and now it's time to turn back to Him. Samukyata, in Srila Jiva Goswami's terms, instead of Bahirmukh, Antarmukh or Sammukh, in terms of taking our face and looking in another direction, now Samukyata, full face-to-face addressing the divine. Which, by the way, is in every direction. So it's not that we just have to look in one direction and then he's not in the other direction, but we are pretty good at not finding him. So Samukyata means when we turn toward him, her, them, a different, a more, how to say, a different way of reciprocation operates. Like Krishna says in the Gita, according to how you approach me, I reciprocate. And as we said, it's not that, okay, if I hate Krishna, Krishna hates me. No. He's saying that if you worship me, actually the word is worship, not so much approach. If you worship me, Krishna says, I worship you. If you don't worship me, I still love you unconditionally, as much as that can happen with you being indifferent to me. And in those situations, the law of karma will play its role in trying to create awareness in us of how we have to educate our choices, how to take responsibility, and gradually become aware that we are being loved unconditionally by Krishna, and then turn to him voluntarily. And then what we call karma, so to say, will be called divine mercy or grace. But I personally, yes, don't like to make a thick line of division between one thing or the other. Like, okay, divine grace is all nice, all beautiful, and karma is all ugly and horrible and chastisement. And because sometimes we create, again, those types of dualities and dichotomies, and that creates separateness in our mind, fractured perception of things. So in both karma and mercy, so to say, in both there is Krishna's presence in different ways, in reciprocation to how we are approaching him, to how we are approaching reality. But there is an intention in karma, so to say. Again, the intention is not let you suffer as much as you can, but let you learn your lesson as much as you can, and let you make better informed choices, so karma can take its full shape as divine grace, so to say. As much as we can say also, Paramatma is in your heart as an inner witness, as long as you don't choose to relate to God. And when you start to relate to God personally, Paramatma blossoms, so to say, poetically, into Bhagavan. It's the same person, Paramatma Bhagavan, but Paramatma is that face of God that reciprocates with the jivas under the influence of Maya Shakti. When a jiva chooses to take shelter in Bhakti Shakti, Swarup Shakti, then Paramatma becomes Bhagavan. So in the same way, you can say the same idea about Paramatma, Bhagavan, karma, mercy, so to say, It's not like an entirely isolated agency which has no connection with the other one. It's all the agencies working together. It's a teamwork trying to push us in the best possible direction. As I like to give the example of the GPS, we already mentioned that a few times, right? I take the right turn and GPS is saying, left turn will be the best for you. And we are like, let's explore right. No? But it's like a cliff there. Sounds exciting. Let's go. and the GPS is like recalculating and trying to give me another best option so I don't kill myself in the cliff. And I still insist in the worst possible direction, and the GPS continues to recalculate and to continue to adjust. So we kill ourselves less and less, let's put it that way. And gradually we start to trust, no, that direction, that voice, and travel together, so to say. So in the same way, the presence of the divine tries to accompany us in the most suitable form and way in every chapter of our life, whether we are conditioned beings, enlightened beings, in between of those stages beings. So from that place, yes, there is a place to see karma as grace, as favorable, as intentional, as having God's presence in it, and trying to draw, of course, the lesson from that. Because if not, again, we project this negativity, this divisiveness, right? Karma, bad chastisement, blah, 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 and mercy, all nice, blah, blah, blah. And we are creating that, no? Instead of extracting the value of everything, like we were saying the other day. Krishna says in the Gita, Vandurat matmanastasya janatmaivat manajitahanatmanastu satrute vartitatmaiva satrubhat. The mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. But generally, we depict the mind as the worst enemy. I remember we were talking with Swetadip and Amanda on that in the beach in Udupi when we were in our morning walks there. And we reinforce this notion. No? The mind is the worst enemy. And we insist so much on that of course the mind remains the worst enemy and becomes worse and worse. But also it can become the best friend. But the point is, what are we doing to turn the worst enemy into my best friend? By insisting that it's the worst enemy, that's not helping. So we need to take a positive approach in which we start to see something that for eons we saw as the worst possible thing into a potential blessing, into something offering some positive content. So the same applies to this example of the mind. The same applies to how we conceive karma, and to so many things in our life and our practice that we may ascribe negativity to it, and that remains negative, and we are not extracting the whole positive potential that is still waiting there for us. So some thoughts that come to mind? I don't know if that makes any sense at all, Ravindra, if it helps. Or if you have any other thoughts.
No, it's very satisfying words and full of depth and color on this subject. It really opens it in a very nice way, because like everyone else, you know, like when we enter into this field, it is often portrayed as like karma equals bad and mercy equals good. That sort of polarities tend to be there, whether anyone means it to be there or not. It does come across that way quite a lot. Yeah,
and something brief that comes to mind, but sometimes we can, by over-idealizing mercy and under-idealizing karma, if we see karma as absolutely negative, we may be very quick into rushing for mercy and praying for mercy, but we are just addressing mercy as escapism, basically, as a relief, as an anxiolytic, like an anxiety pill, like to stop dealing with my karma. Well, actually the karma is trying to teach me something as a friend, but I'm not willing to learn. I'm not willing to see anything positive. So I just, quote unquote, take shelter of mercy, but that's not mercy at all. So I'm saying this in the sense that I can have a very negative idea of karma, but also that takes me to have a very distorted idea of mercy as well. So we need to have a proper conception of both. And distortion in one may lead to a distortion in the other also, yeah. Thank you. And of course, there's more to say, and there are lots of mystery, as brothers of mystery and sisters of mystery, to continue unpacking in time. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next raised question from Ireland as well, from Amanda and Svetadwip. Who has a question today?
So, me.
Okay, no problem.
There's not.
Ladies first.
Okay. And happy to everybody. Today is actually a happy day here because now the days are going to become longer. It was interesting because I'm kind of noticing a parallel in my inner world also. Like as the days were like becoming longer, I was kind of noticing like the darkness kind of reaching peaks, or like becoming a bit intense. And like I think when the sun is entering the northern hemisphere now, like kind of it seems to be like shedding light on areas, you know, that were in the dark or something like that. I don't know if anyone else notices that, but I thought it's kind of interesting, like how this external phenomenon kind of happens like internally also, like within us. Anyway, my question is unrelated. This is something that I asked you when we were in Radha-Krishna, but you suggested that I bring it up in during Ishtagoshti or Satsang. So we were seeing many sadhus, Babas there in Radha-Krishna, and who were meditating on the Lila of Sri Radha and Krishna, maybe specifically the astakaliya-lila. So I was asking you, like, is this something, you know, we kind of also reach, or like as we advance, like, is this something we also get to? Or is it a different path, you know, like meditating on the Lila of Sri Radha and Krishna, like specifically when chanting, like the sadhus who are chanting, like meditating on that. So yeah, I mean, that was a question. And I was also saying that I kind of vaguely remember that hearing somewhere that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, towards his, like, you know, like the last years in Samadhi, was also meditating on the Leela while he was chanting. Like, I'm not 100% that's true, but yeah, just wanted to add to the question.
Thank you. So, where to begin? Of course, we all heard about the Leela of Radha and Krishna. There is something called astakaliya-lila, or astaniyam seva, different ways of referring to that, which is this eightfold division that is made in Shastra of pastimes of Krishna happening throughout the periods of their eternal day or schedule. This is described in books like Govinda Lilamrita, Krishna Bhavanamrita, and others, Nanda Vrindavan Shampoo, and so on. From 8:24 to 10:48, from 10:48 to 3:36 p.m., 3:36 p.m. to 6 to 8:24, and so on and so forth. Of course, this is an approximate idea. No, it's not that at 3:36 there is an alarm in Golok Vrindavan or a bell, like, okay, next period of the Lila, now you have to go this way. No, it's just an idea, no? to give us a frame of reference of the flow. And of course, it's not that every single day, because we have these descriptions in the Shastra. Okay, what Radha and Krishna do and all the associates in Vrindavan do on each one of those periods, but doesn't mean that every single day they do all that in the exact same way, right? Even if you want to say, yeah, but internally they experience something different, but externally it's always the same thing. No, it's not even like that. It's just some general description for us to have an idea. Remember that in one sense, Shastra is and I'm not meaning to disrespect Shastra by saying this, but in one sense, Shastra is a finger pointing to the moon. No, it's like a map. The map is not the territory, as they say, right? So it's something that invites us to engage in. It's meant to share, of course, this experience and testimony of seers of the truth, rishis, tattvadarshins. And by witnessing their experience, we have some experience that inspires us to adopt a certain practice that has to take us to our own experience. And then you have landed on the moon when you have your own experience. So there are different ways of addressing the practice. It's not that being a Gaudiya Vaishnava means to follow formula A, B, C, and D, and that means to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava. I mean, in the beginning, we may think that. We may visit the temple, read our first books, know our first devotees, and okay, every Krishna Bhakta in the whole planet does things like this until you, I don't know, visit the temple next door or go to India and your head explodes because there is a sea of diversity per block. So you have to accommodate that and not rush into, okay, who of all these guys is correct and all the other guys are bad? No, it's not like that. So there are different ways to address the practice in connection to meditation on astakaliya-lila. Bhaktivinoda Thakur refers to in his Jai Dharma, and he mentions how from Mahaprabhu's associates, there have been two different currents, if you want to put it that way, which are not, again, one's against the other or anything. It's just a natural expression of the tree, if you want to use the analogy of the tree that was used by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Mahaprabhu is the trunk of the tree, and so many parivars or so many families and groups became different branches and sub-branches of that trunk. And each branch has their own flavor. Of course, each individual of each branch has their own flavor. No? Each bird in each branch will sing differently, their own song, right? But we will find particular ways that have developed throughout history. Even if you study the whole thing from a socio-historical perspective, you will see some incorporation of different techniques and practices and modes coming in time, sequentially. It's not that from day one with Mahaprabhu was his associate, everything was fixed and everyone followed like that from that time till now. No, so many things happened and continue to happen and will continue to happen, hopefully. And that doesn't amount to deviation. It's just like a natural expression of an, again, ever-evolving reality, not only the ever-evolving tradition and the ever-evolving essence of the tradition, but the ever-evolving nature of the time and culture and social circumstances and so many factors that create their own influence. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur refers to these two branches, one stemming from Bhakreshwar Pandit, eternal associate of Mahaprabhu, famous for his dancing. Interestingly, he was the dancer par excellence, and that was his main seva, and Mahaprabhu was pleased with that, and everyone was pleased with that, and you can attain perfection by dancing, just in case. And from him came a series of disciples and disciples of his disciples, Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyana Chandra Goswami, and they composed a series of padhatis or manuals where they presented a more sequential meditation manual on how to focus your mind going through these different periods of the Lila of Radha and Krishna as a way to focus your mind. And that developed into a whole tradition that nowadays many of their followers are found in Radha-Kunda, though the whole tradition interestingly started in Jagannath Puri, since Bhakreshwar Pandit, Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyana Chandra Goswami were from Puri, but somehow the whole tradition, of course, there are members in Puri, but became the main embassy of that tradition became Radha-Kund. And it adopted a certain particular form where many of those devotees received at the time of Diksha certain information about how they can meditate on themselves in the lila and going through these different stages. All this started to develop and take different particular shape in time, I would say. So some may argue, no, that was there from day one, but we don't have any concrete evidence of that if we go to the main scriptures from that time. So that's one thing. And again, by saying this, at any moment I'm saying that's not bona fide or inferior or anything. And on the other side, we have the other branch, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentioned, which came from Raghunath Das Goswami. We know Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis. Interestingly, his presence in Radha-Kunda he's the most prominent of the 6 Goswamis in Radha-Kunda. His Samadhi is there, his Bhajan Kutir is there. We've been there, 2 days ago, actually. And his process is not so much of that sequential meditation, but chanting the name of Krishna. And with the faith that by chanting the name, everything else will reveal. With this sequence in mind. Not so much the eightfold sequence of the lila, but the sequence of nama, rupa, guna, and lila. Now, the name will take to the revelation of Krishna's form, to the revelation of Krishna's attributes, to the revelation of Krishna's lila. Because the name is not different from the named, abhinatvam namanamino, niya sarva saktis, all potencies are in the name, which means name can reveal everything. So if you don't have a faith that that's the case, somehow you are committing aparadha. So if you insist that other forms of practice are absolutely requisite and the name is not enough, that's a form of diminishing the potential power of the name. So on that basis, we invest this emphasis on the sadhana of chanting and all that revolves the lifestyle around the chanting. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was reading, I think yesterday, something that basically he was making the simple point that is, by chanting the name of Krishna purely, and of course the whole conversation is required to unpack what does it mean, gradually all the things will be revealed. Not only the leelas of Krishna, but one's participation, identity, and service, and so on and so forth. So he will make this point, there is no separate need to meditate on those leelas while chanting, but mostly while chanting, trying to chant, instead of trying to chant and meditating. I'm not, again, condemning that someone may do that. I'm just saying that there is a place for focusing absolutely on the chanting, on the presence in front of the name, with proper sambandha, with proper understanding. What's the name? Who am I in relation to the name? And chanting and listening from that place of presence with the faith that by doing that properly, with proper conception, who is Krishna, what's the name, everything will be revealed in time. And in one sense, our Acharya will say that's a more, if you will, safe process that will guarantee that whenever you are ready for that, all those things will come. And we have lots of testimonies from sadhus in our lineage who embraced that process and, of course, received all this type of revelations in time, when they were ready to deal with, to accommodate what's that. What's the lila? What's my participation? It's not just like a mental entertainment. No? Okay, let's think what I'm not against if you want to think, okay, now it's 4:38 p.m. India. Okay, what Krishna does at that time in the lila prox. I mean, I'm not saying that's sinful to do that. Do not go there. I'm not saying that, but also be sure from which place you are doing that. I mean, how you are committing yourself to that idea, or it's just an idea, no? Or how can you establish some realistic connection with what's going on at that time in the lila from where you are now? And Jiva Goswami supports that in his Bhakti Sandarbha. He speaks about Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. He speaks about Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam. So he presents this kram or sequence. At first, he says there is Shravan or listening of Nam, then Shravan of Rupa, then Shravan of Guna, then Shravan of Lila. Then comes Kirtan of Nam, Kirtan of Guna, Kirtan of Rupa, Kirtan of Lila. Then comes Smaran of Nam, Rupa, Guna, and Lila. So interestingly, in that 12-step, this is our 12-step program. Because we are all coming with some type of addiction, right? That's our parallel. We are AA in our own ways. So you want to to be detoxified. Okay, here our 12-step program. No, it begins by listening the name. No, and the last step of the 12-step program that Jiva Swami is giving is Lila Smaranam, remembering the Lila. It's the last one of all. But in some groups, that's given as the first one. So for us, that's not so much in tune with what Jiva Goswami is teaching in the Bhakti Sandarbha. So that's what I will say. Again, some sadhus resort to that meditation. There are different ways of meditating on that. Mantra-maya upasana, mantra-maya upasana, and swarasiki. That's also another term that Jiva Goswami uses. So mantra-maya upasana means in a more mechanical way, so to say, I try to fix my mind in the lila or even in one frame of the movie. Like, I don't know, there are mantras that are for that. Mantra-maya upasana means the worship, the upasana, mantra-maya, based on one particular mantra that depicts something like Divyat Brindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Sriman Radha Srila Govinda Devu Prasali Visivyamanashmarami. That's famous mantra when we offer pranam to Sri Radha Govinda. Says Divyat Brindaranya Kalpadrumada, in the desired tree of the divine Vrindavan, Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto, seated on a seat made of jewels, Sriman Radha Srila Govinda Deva, Sri Radha Govinda, Prastali Visivyamanashmarami, Smarami. Sit in that seat, surrounded by their associates who are offering them loving service. So that mantra is kind of giving you a depiction of a particular scene of the Lila. So you can recite the mantra and try to fix that idea, and on that foundation you can chant or meditate. That's mantra-maya upasana. Again, it's not illegal. But there is swarasiki. So swarasiki means while mantra-maya upasana is like a fixed picture, one frame of the whole movie, swarasiki is like an uninterrupted flow of lila. It's not just one frame of the movie. It's the whole thing unfolding uninterruptedly. Like a stream of, I don't know, of oil coming. You don't see even the whole thing moving, but it's non-stop. So that naturally comes when you have some realization, some inner participation in all that. In the beginning, it may be more mechanical. And again, it's part of some particular lineages. It helps them to mechanically take your mind, okay, now this scene, now the thing, now the thing, with the intention that gradually it becomes something spontaneous. No, it doesn't mean that just because you are doing that, mechanically you are more advanced or you are a genuine practitioner of Raganuga Bhakti. As I shared some time ago, Ananta Das Babaji, who is one of the main exposers of Raganuga Bhakti and one of the probably the most well-known Babaji of Radha-Kund, he passed away some years ago. And he was falling into this type of practice. And he will say, even if you meditate on this astakaliya-lila on a daily basis, but in a mechanical way, just sequentially, he was not condemning that, but he was saying, if you are doing that from that place, that's still considered a form of Vaidhi Bhakti, he will say, because it's mechanical. Again, we are not condemning that, but it's not like a spontaneous, passionate flow, absorption, and so on, right? I'm saying this because sometimes also I've seen devotees superficially rush and say, oh, those esoteric meditations are the real thing, and whomever is doing that is higher than those who are merely chanting. And not necessarily. I like to see what's going on beyond the surface, inside the heart of the mind of the practitioner, and then we can see where each other stands, so to say. So that's basically the point. Bhaktivinoda Thakur of course, you are mentioning Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and you are mentioning Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Samadhi. So again, in Samadhi, Samadhi means perfect meditation. So in that state, of course, all the things naturally manifest and flow. We cannot force our way into them. That's a very important caution. We shouldn't, if we should cultivate an attraction for that naturally, but we shouldn't rush into that and try to like own the whole thing. It's not an ascending process, but a descending one. So Srila Siddha Maharaj will many times will say that, right? False rush where angels fear to tread. So we are approaching the highest of the highest, and we want to do it very, not with fear, but with care, with concern, with sensitiveness, because everything is very delicate. Everything is worthy of our worship. So we don't want to trample onto the sacredness of that magical realm, so to say. So that's basically a little bit these two moods, so to say, which at the same time I don't want to create an absolute dichotomy between the two of them. No, there's a point of relatedness, and we of course study Bhagavatam and study other shastras and hear Harikatha. We hear the Leelas of Bhagavan, and it's not that it's bad to think of them, meditate on them, but again, we have to be able, as I like to mention in past lectures when I speak about, I don't know, Govardhan Lila, Rasa Lila, Gopastami Lila. Also, we have to be able to draw lessons from those Lilas that also are applicable to our current situation. Because if not, many times they just remain like a nice story. Like, okay, nice story, but I'm not participating in the Lila yet. And if I'm not able to draw any lesson that speaks to me here and now, in one sense, the Lila remains unrelatable to me and becomes irrelevant. It's just a nice story that I may learn by heart and recite from beginning to end. But how is the Govardhan Lila speaking to me in my particular stage? How is Rasa Lila talking to where I am? We need to create those bridges of relatability, so to say. And by that, I start to feel that the Lila speaks to me, that I'm part of that. I start to participate in that by feeling I'm part of that. Not apart from that, but a part of that. And gradually that warrants that my participation becomes more and more deep and internal and committed. So for me, that's also a way more safer way to deal with this reality of Lila or astakaliya-lila than just making it like a mechanical sequence or set of charming stories that many times can also be like once I remember, for some reason I will never, till today at least, I have not forgotten that. It's one line that I heard from one sadhu in Argentina, maybe 20 years ago. But he said this very simply. I'm very much in the spirit of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Siddha Maharaj. He said the Leelas are not to enjoy, but the Leelas are to commit ourselves. So when I'm hearing a narration of the Leela, naturally, how I'm committing myself to that narration is any form of commitment coming from my heart, or is just I'm having fun while listening the story, which is not bad in itself. There are moments, I mean, when Madhu Mangal appears on the scene, I mean, we'll laugh to death. But at the same time, we have to not lose sight of what's his deep commitment there. Even while making all the jokes he makes, it's all from a very deep place of commitment to give pleasure, to nourish the lila, to nourish the loving exchange. There's responsibility in the hasya rasa, in the joking. Yeah, not to make it like sound like less than what it is, just to not lose sight of what it actually is. So, yeah. A few thoughts. What do you think, Sweta-Radhika?
Very
Anything
nice.
else? Something that comes to mind?
Not really, but I just want to appreciate, like all the points you mentioned, specifically like knowing the history, which is very nice. History starting from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how this two different approaches started, and also mainly understanding that it's not so much of an our approach, like I understand, is not so much of an intentional, meditating on that, but chanting and allowing that to happen naturally. Yeah, and I very much like your 12-step program, the idea of it.
That just came in a moment. Yeah, Mahaprabhu himself, he is Krishna in his Acharya-lila, right? So Mahaprabhu or Gaur-lila is God's lila, where God acts as a guru. God acts as someone who gives example of how to practice. So if you study how Mahaprabhu's life unfolds, he's not meditating on astakaliya-lila or something. He's chanting the name of Krishna and doing Sankirtan and serving the Vaishnavas, that of course exhibiting a very deep personal example. And on the basis of that, as the lila unfolds and he reaches his ante-lila, he becomes more internal. He enters the Gambhira, and then he immerses himself in all these esoteric topics and Katana association. But in the beginning, it's a different template. No, I'm not saying with this that Mahaprabhu in the beginning was not ready for that. I'm saying that in his way of showing the way, being an acharya, being God as an acharya, he's showing that natural sequence that if you engage in bhakti, all different angas, expressions of bhakti, if you get to practice from an intentional, absorbed place, all those things will come naturally, will come irresistibly at some point. And when those things come in that way, it will be very clear confirmation that it's the moment to embrace them. There will be no doubt, because they will come with such a force as a result of your previous work and cultivation and calling for that. So for me, that's the most organic and natural way in which things should work, instead of me trying to, enter there without actually wanting to be willing to do what it takes to enter there. Right? That's what Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta will call sahaja. And he will speak strongly about that, because that tendency is there. No, the tendency of not wanting to, not only wanting something higher than where we are, but behind that, there is the thing of not being willing to accept where I am. Many times this tendency to go to something higher is not so much because I want the higher thing, but because I'm not able to deal where I am now, with where I am now. It's not so much that I want the higher thing, because if I want the higher thing, I will do the things that are required to obtain the higher thing. But if I'm just doing escapism and running to the higher thing, that shows not so much that I want the higher thing, but that I'm in denial of accepting where I am now. And that needs to be addressed. So from that place, our acharyas have made that emphasis, because they know that's one of the top 5 anarthas, if you will. No? Spiritual bypassing, escapism, all in the name, again, of the higher thing. And we have such higher things that it makes even all the more dangerous to indulge in that form of bypassing. So, yeah. Thank you. Let's go to the next. Raise hand, coming from Germany. Kanupriyaji, please, you can unmute yourself. Welcome.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for all this nectar. So my question today is, I think that there are 2 or 3 questions connected. So the main question is it possible to attain the highest goal, Krishna-prema, going back to Godhead, without a guru, without taking initiation? And so the connected questions are, what really happens during initiation? Also, of course, there are also differences, first initiation, second initiation. I think all traditions have differences, what initiation means. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, as you mentioned, thanks for the question. Interesting one, important one, and one that requires some unpacking. So probably that will be the last question for today. Let's see, unless there are other questions, but we can spend some time with it. Because, of course, in brief, the question is, can one attain the highest goal without taking initiation? But as you mentioned, or as you intuit, we need to bring some other questions inside that question to clarify what it means, all that. What's the highest goal according to us? What's initiation? And so on and so forth. For example, what comes to mind, Srila Jiva Goswami, and where to begin? A few things come at the same time. Because you clarify without the guru, and then you further clarify your question without taking initiation, which I appreciate the clarification. Because someone may have not taken initiation, but somehow may have a guru, no? In terms of siksha. And particularly in our tradition, it comes from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. At least I'm talking for those I'm seeing now. If someone comes from other line, I don't want to disrespect or dishonor that by excluding that. But in the line of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we have this emphasis on siksha, sometimes called siksha parampara or Bhagavat parampara, which is mentioned in Shastra. It's not his own idea, which emphasizes siksha, which of course that doesn't mean that rejects diksha or rejects initiation, but puts emphasis that also many things that we can say about initiation. First of all, what's initiation? Because in some groups, initiation, as you mentioned, well, in some groups, there's this mention of first initiation, second initiation. Not all groups use that language. So it's good that we are open to, how to say, acknowledge that not every group speaks in those terms. No? In some groups, what we call, or what some call first initiation, does not consider initiation, but is considered Harinam. You receive Harinam from a sadhu, but in Shastra also it is mentioned that Harinam is independent of initiation. And therefore, the initiation that comes after that, sometimes is called second initiation, is what's called initiation, diksha. Again, this may be a little bit of a technical clarification. I'm not against calling one first initiation and second initiation, but some groups will refer to Harinam as Harinam, receiving the name of Hari from a sadhu, which again, all of us may have been chanting the name of Krishna, even if we have never received that from a sadhu, or maybe we'll receive it eventually, but it's not that before receiving it from a sadhu, we never chanted Hare Krishna, right? So most of us said Hare Krishna, I will assume, a few times before someone handed us Japamala in what we consider first initiation and gave us the Hare Krishna mantra. So we continue singing the same mantra, quote unquote, the same, now with the blessings of a particular sadhu and receiving a particular connection with that person and particular bhakti samskars or devotional impressions. And diksha could be seen as a more formal, establishment of the relationship between guru and disciple. Again, traditionally, these functions maybe took different shape than what it looks like today. No? For example, traditionally, diksha marked the beginning of the education process of the disciple with the guru. So many times the disciple will go and live with the guru in the gurukul, and diksha marked the beginning of the educational process. So diksha was something like, okay, the guru is accepting the disciple to begin the education. many of us may not think like that when we think of Diksha now, because the model of going to live with the Guru in the Gurukul may not be happening that much for the current postmodern dynamics or whatever. But traditionally, that was the meaning. Again, I'm not saying now the whole thing is lost and we have to do it like it was before. Let's go back to village life, all of us. It may change different shapes, but we have to keep sight of the essence of that. So one says Diksha was marking of the beginning of the education process. Like if we want to make sometimes also, some those have made a parallel with Christianity in terms of baptism and the confirmation, or communion and the confirmation. So Harinam is kind of the communion, and Diksha is kind of the confirmation. Again, there are different ways to put it. But in our particular tradition, Rupa Goswami, who is one of the main architects of Gaudiya Sampradaya, he mentions, and just for you to know, I won't give you a black and white answer, as you may have already noticed by now, because there are many things to say and many devotees think differently about this. So I'm trying to bring all to the table, and each of us have to think for ourselves about that. Rupa Goswami, when he gives this 64 angas of bhakti, he starts with Guru Padashraya, that he says, Sri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam, Vishrambena Guru Seva Sarlu Bhardmanu Bhartanta. So first anga of bhakti, take shelter of a guru, implying the beginning of bhakti proper is in connection with someone that can teach you what's bhakti. Because how can you begin bhakti if you have no clue what's bhakti, so to say? So Guru Padashraya means you took connection with some particular sadhu. And the general sequence is Sri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshana. Then comes Diksha, and then comes Siksha. Of course, before Diksha, there is some Siksha that draws you to take Diksha from that person. But after that Diksha comes a more, probably, let's put it that way, sequential Siksha. Again, going back to the times where Rupa Goswami is speaking and the educational process, that how it took shape at those times, and so on and so forth. So he includes Diksha in these 64 angas of bhakti. Now in the Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami speaks about Diksha, but interestingly, he emphasizes Diksha, because in Diksha we receive certain mantras, right? Sometimes they're called Gayatri mantras, which actually is a little bit an inaccurate term, because not all the mantras are Gayatri, at least in our tradition. Gopal mantra is not a Gayatri. Gayatri has certain structure and has certain words like Vidmahe, Dhimahi, Prachodayat, and this sequence of Sambandha, Videya, and Prayojan through those words. And in between there are shorter mantras, right? Gaur mantra, Guru mantra, Gopal mantra, at least in our tradition. In other paribars, probably they only receive Gopal mantra and Kama Gayatri maximum. So it's not so much that we should call them Gayatri, but it's more Diksha mantras. So Jiva Goswami makes the point that these Diksha mantras, of course, we recite them 3 times a day in our, again, lineage. But mostly this Diksha is given in the context of Archanam, Jiva Goswami says, of adoration, worship of the deity, because to worship the deity, you need to invoke these mantras in the worship. And he makes the point that worship of the deity is something that helps you fix your mind, and most people need to fix their mind because their minds are not under control. But he will say, if your mind is relatively under control, then Diksha may not be necessary, he says. So he makes that point there. He presents some cases in which you say, he relates Diksha to worship of the deity and worship of the deity to something that helps you fix your mind. Now again, he said that at that time. I now, in nowadays community of Bhakti, I see many devotees who do not worship the deity and receive Diksha, right? And I'm not against that. I'm just saying this is a different situation. So so the function, for example, that Jiva Goswami had in mind for Diksha was mostly in connection to worship of the deity and controlling your mind. But nowadays, maybe the way we control our mind is not so much in connection to Archana in many cases. So how much Diksha plays a similarly crucial role that in play at those times. And again, we should need to talk about those things. It's not like just repeating copy-paste formula and that's it. At the same time, we have many statements in Shastra and from our acharyas that say the name of Krishna can bring all perfection. You can attain all perfection by Harinam, and Harinam is independent of initiation, which should give the idea, okay, so Diksha is not required then, if I really take shelter of Harinam. Okay, one could make that case, but also you go to the 10 nama parats, or reference to the name, and say the fourth is Guru Bhakti, or to dismiss the principle of Guru. So some may, but again, what does it mean to neglect the principle of Guru? Different people interpret that different ways. Some will say, that means that you need to take Diksha. But others will say, not necessarily. That may mean that you can chant the name, but you take guidance from a guru. Even if you don't take Diksha, you take Siksha, and you are not neglecting the principle of Guru. And by not neglecting the principle of Guru while chanting Harinam, you can attain all perfection. There is a possibility of that. Even though that may not be, the majority's course of action, and mostly will end up taking Diksha, I think it's healthy to keep in mind other possible avenues that at one time may not be the norm. They may be the exception to the norm. Maybe at other times will become closer to the norm. I mean, things change in time. If you study any religious movement, all the things take different roles and prominence in time. So in one sense, that's my answer to the question. I didn't say yes or no, and just presented a variety of perspectives and opinions and statements. And I'm not someone, as you already may know, that likes to just take one stance, right? And say, no, you have to do it, and that's it, and that's how it works, and tuck, and that's it. Because, again, we see so many, so many different situations. I mean, not to even think of other cases. I'm just thinking about my own situation, which has the complexity of its own. And of course, I'm not expecting that the whole Gaudiya community will go through my situation, God forbid. But my situation is my situation, so it has to be somehow contemplated and how it works in the awkward, weird case of Swami Padmanabha, all this stuff, how that plays out. It may play out in a very strange, unique way, but there has to be some way that it plays out. And what about case B and case C? Again, it's not just like you just have to fit in with the only possible formula, and good luck with that. Because again, I've shared different perspective from Shastra, from our Goswamis, which are in one sense flexible on some level. No, it's not that they are all just pointing to one single thing and there's no other way apart from that. So at the end of the day, yes, each situation and each case is unique. But of course, I will say in a general point, even if we will like to make the case for someone attaining the ultimate perfection without having received Diksha, or maybe having received Diksha, but after some time having their relationship with the Diksha Guru discontinued for whatever reason. In one sense, of course, the clear consensus is in Guru Bhakti. We should not neglect the principle of Guru, the principle of divine guidance. But again, that doesn't mean necessarily Diksha. It can be Siksha. And Siksha can be taken in so many directions. Again, I don't want to sound too abstract, but as we learn from the Bhagavatam. No? There are sometimes we find the 24 gurus. Krishna is the original guru, Jagat Guru, the source of our parampara. And Krishna is everywhere. And Krishna is the original guru. So therefore, the guru is everywhere. Technically speaking, in principle, there is not a place where guru is not. So if we have, of course, who has the capacity to contact that, that's another conversation. And that's why we probably need a teacher to train us in that. But in principle, that's a possibility. Today I was watching a video of Srila Siddhar Maharaj that was shared in a channel, YouTube channel, where different clips, Bhakti Rakshak Bani, if you want to look for that. I think something that when can we be independent or something. And the devotee asked Srila Siddhar Maharaj, when a devotee can be free from authorities, so to say, in his spiritual life. And of course, someone may ask, well, Srila Siddhar Maharaj will smash that question and say, that's not possible, and you should always remain under someone telling you what to do or something like that. And Srila Maharaj say, no, that's, at some point, that's natural, that's possible. You establish a certain level of realization and connection that the mediator is no longer necessary. Of course, this doesn't mean you reject your guru. It means that actually you are accepting the guru principle in a broader and deeper way. No? You follow my point? But for some, for the untrained eye, that may sound like heresy. That may sound like you are rejecting your guru. And it's like, no, I'm accepting my guru in a more comprehensive way. But it feels like the opposite for those who are not doing that. For those who have a more hyper-localized provincial idea of what means guru. No? Because again, all this question is related to guru, to the concept of guru. But most of us, and we were talking about this with Radha Madhav the other day, most of us many times do not have a proper understanding of what's guru, of guru tattva. We hyper-localized the notion of guru to one particular individual, to one particular agent. And that's beginning with the wrong step, because the first step in understanding guru tattva properly is to contact the universal principle of guru, and from there go to the localized expression of it, not vice versa. I will say. First, start with the samasti principle, and then go to the vyasti principle. First, and start, guru is one, guru is none, you cannot divide guru in different people. It's called akanda guru tattva. Guru tattva is akanda, means there's no kanda. Kanda means division. So it's indivisible. It's one complete wholesome agency. Krishna, let's begin there. The non-dual, he's the original guru. That's guru tattva. And on that foundation, whomever and whatever that agency of revelation approaches us, no matter the form, that's guru. And I may find in some particular individuals that coming to me in a particular way, and I will call that guru. But I have to be very careful not to over-localize the notion of guru and limit that to one particular person. But many times we just think about that when we think of guru. That's where we go first, second, third, fourth. No? Like the classical question, who is your guru? And you are supposed to give one single name. Instead of saying, well, guru is everywhere. No, give me one name. And even the name has to be the name of your Diksha guru, even if your main guru figure may be your Siksha guru. So many times how we frame the question, and of course I'm not referring to your question, but how we frame the question, who is your guru, or the whole conversation is in itself distorted, it's in itself limiting. So I'm just adding this as a footnote to the whole answer, because again, guru tattva is considered the most difficult tattva to understand. And I would say the most difficult thing about guru tattva is that generally the tendency and temptation is to over-localize and limit guru tattva to the agent before going to the agency that the agent is representing. So by skipping that step, you basically distort the whole thing from step one and get a partial view of the whole thing. And we have seen how many mistakes and fanaticism and stuff happens by having a wrong conception on guru tattva. Anyhow, what do you think, Anupriya? I don't know if that helped, or now you're more confused than before the question. It can happen. I'm open to that. I know that I can create that. It's my responsibility.
This makes totally sense for me. Thank you so much for this very colorful answer. I like this much more than black and white answers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it can happen in so many ways. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And just to conclude, as I mentioned the other day, 2 weeks ago, maybe, where we were, Swetadip on Monday in Suryakund, maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And I shared a short video, maybe you watch it, of the story of Madhusudan Das Babaji. And he was like Siksha Guru of Jagannath Das Babaji, so connected to our Siksha Parampara. And as I mentioned, he was at one point, long story short, initiated by someone, but that someone gave him mantra and basically disappeared. And he never found his guru again. So he didn't know who my guru is, what's my lineage, what to do with this mantra, what's the purport. He was initiated, but at the same time, he was in a very liminal space. And many of the sadhus in the area didn't accept him as part of the community because who are you? Who is your guru? You don't know his name, his lineage, and how much you have been actually initiated. So he was kind of ostracized. So he was feeling so strange. And one point he decided to kill himself in that situation, in that feeling, jumped to Radha-Kund. And then he was saved by Radha and Krishna to say that he tied the Govardhan Shila to his neck, a big one, and jumped. And Radha and Krishna came from Radha-Kund, untied the knot, and revealed to him all the missing information that his guru didn't give him. And then he came out and shared all that, and he became who he became. So that's very interesting. Because again, that's for me how Guru Tattva appears in one's life appears and disappears in one's life in very unique, mysterious ways. That's one particular case. It's not the normal sequence of events as we may idealize in the beginning, but still is Madhusudan Das Babaji, the Siksha Guru of Jagannath Das Babaji. So we have to welcome Krishna and Guru Tattva in whatever ways it needs to come. That's the most important consideration. Yes. Okay. Thanks so much to all. I think we can put the discussion to rest for a minute. Of course, you are invited to stay, but we will conclude the first part of our conversation, so to say, before going to the breakout rooms here. Sri Satchidananda Gaur Hari Ki Jai, Sri Harinam Prabhu Ki